E122 live. Wow, that was very techno. That was
Very.
Yeah.
They've
You
got a
enjoyed
much
that?
better intro than I do. Wow.
Yeah. So,
Wow.
Very nice.
I could do techno for you as well.
I think I'm going to have to make one for you, Dave. I think I'm going to have to help you out there.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, everybody, for joining today. So the show is Sermon from the German because usually BrownCarGuy is sitting in his BMW. But but unfortunately he can't today because he's in the BMW van, which, as you can see, is much larger than the car. Very spacious. There's a couch apparently, so he's doing good. So
let me explain myself here.
There we go.
I would be happy to do it, right? But classic cars are divas, and classic car owners become very precious about their divas. So when the weather like today is just terrible, it can't make up its mind if it's going to rain or sleet or snow or what. And I've got this thick cover that I normally keep on the car, and I just didn't want to take the cover off it today. And it's as simple as that, I'm afraid.
There you go. So, but that's okay because we're not going to change the title of the show to call it "Sermon from the Couch." So it's still Sermon from the German.
I might change the name of the show to "Let's Remove the Seat Cover." Maybe that's even a better way.
Car cover.
Too many words.
Oh, car cover. Sorry, can't say seat. Is that wrong? Is that a
seat cover?
No, seat covers inside the car. I won't protect it from the rain.
Oh, right.
Uncover. Get uncovered.
Yes.
We uncover.
The car.
There we go. Now we're getting somewhere.
But what color?
Uncover.
What color is your car?
The brown car.
What color is the cover?
No, what color is your car?
The car is black. The cover is
But
gray.
you're called BrownCarGuy. Why are you called BrownCarGuy?
That's right. Wouldn't it be black?
There's an incredible piece of insight to that, and that is that I is brown, isn't
it? Can I tell you? We don't see color here, so we don't know. We can't. Everyone's a human being.
The
That's
color
what we tell
from
people.
car to car, huh?
That's right.
Yeah.
Every show is going to have to change. I just like your latest video that's out where everybody's talking about BrownCarGuy is very good, by the way.
Technically, people say, right, if you say BrownCarGuy, it should be brown, car guy, because car guy is one noun and then brown is the other one. So
correct.
But it doesn't work as a logo, so it's BrownCarGuy.
BrownCarGuy.
Well, you could call yourself Mr. Comma then, and I'm done with it.
I could, but also, like at the end of the day, it's a descriptor, right? And you guys call yourself two old farts because you are
too old.
Thank you very little.
Not as beautifully done as I was hoping. So we try that again. You guys,
go on.
Two old farts because you are. This is
I
can't be working with amateurs.
That's your cue.
Yes, I know.
I can't. Stephen, am I an old fart? I don't know, mate. I've lost it.
Call yourselves that, don't you?
Do we? Is that what it's called?
Here's the best part about that.
Oh.
That's the joke of the show. We had a guy on, and we're going to get into the real topic here in a few minutes, but we had a guy on that was a blockchain, so like Web 3.0 expert. And so we're talking to him. Apparently, he's not
interested in Web 3, Stephen.
Well, fine. There you go.
I'm still considering whether I need to work with amateurs. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there you go. Okay. But he didn't get the joke of the show. It was two old farts making noises, meaning like we're older. It doesn't mean we're idiots. And so he's talking about something, and I said, yeah, but my company back in the day. We're the first ones who did X, and he was like, oh. I was like, yeah, we're not idiots. So when you say, I know what you wanted us to do. I was hoping Roll would jump in with his boys. So yeah, two old farts making noises. There you go. Two old farts making noises. We started out the show as two old white guys, and our first couple of guests were of color, and they thought it was the funniest and greatest thing. They loved it. Then all of a sudden, our board of directors got nervous, and then our wives and other partners got nervous. They go, you can't be two old white guys because if you
Why
become
not?
big, apparently because we're not white. I don't know.
Yeah.
They said their concern is that someone would think we were racist. So I'm like, what do you want to call it? Then become two old guys making.
You're thinking it too much.
Stuck with that. You should have stuck with
No,
that.
we would have done, but everybody was saying, "Oh, think about the blowback," and
Yeah,
you know,
never.
that, you
are.
that you're going to be seen as racist. Or Stephen is anyway. I'm not.
Wow.
Wow. Hello from under the bus.
Let's
Listen,
open that can of worms. Let's go there.
He's in the US, so you know if he's a white guy, you know, with an opinion in the US, he's racist. So and I'm,
true.
you know, I'm Church of England, so whatever happens to me, I'm safe. You know,
This does
I'm
have a
holding-
Brady Bunch look about it, by the way.
Yeah.
This is what?
It has a Brady Bunch look. You know
Yes,
what I mean?
we need one more. We need one more person, and we could do the Brady Bunch thing. You know, we have a friend. So it'd be very, very cool. Well, the show we are going to do today.
Who are
is
your
about-
children then, Stephen?
Who
are your children then?
I can't go to Vietnam. That's all I know. But anyway, we after the last show we did, because we like to have these two gentlemen on, and Roll we always have on, but we said we should do a show that's kind of thought provoking, and all our shows are, but this one's a little more. So we and Rez was getting BGC going, and we said let's talk about racism, and because everybody experiences it differently, and David's never experienced it because he's just as white as Casper, so he's fine. So and Roll was in South Africa, so he said I want to be part of that. I'm a Jew from New York, so we hate everybody, so we're good. And then we have you two gentlemen, and I know Rez is going to wind you up, so I'm waiting for this. So I'm like, this is going to be the best. So we want to talk about racism and whether it's funny, serious, or whatever, just to get people's thoughts differently than what the media has and the woke societies and everybody offends everybody, but like what it really means to this group and like how we've seen it change over the years. And I think it may be a thought-provoking discussion for younger people who are woke, which bullshit. And for the older group, I think a lot of them are going to be like, yeah, that's how we were all raised. And, we've changed over the years for the better, I'm hoping. So,
yeah. I'd like to, I mean, I think it'll be very interesting because the parallels between Reza and me, both being, he thinks he's so much younger than me, but both being of a similar age and having grown up in London, have very different takes and very different experiences of it. But I'd like to hear from our friend in South Africa first, because obviously this has been a major thing there for a very long time.
Oh, okay. Is that my cue? All right.
Yeah.
Well,
yes.
one of the reasons
Working with amateurs.
I know. One of the things that I thought I could provide would be a slightly different point of view, because I came to South Africa when I was about 6. I was born in the UK. My parents were obviously of British extraction, so on and so forth. And we came to the country with, I guess, a non-historical, we didn't have the baggage of the people that were here. So I kind of grew up sort of in a British society or family, but lived in a very divided country. And initially, as a kid, I thought it was rather strange. My parents thought it was very odd, the way things were. They came here for economic reasons, but not for the apartheid thing, obviously. And growing up, we just carried on. I mean, we just had friends of whatever description. Note what I didn't say there, of every description. And it proved a little troublesome for my family because at the time, the society wasn't really happy with you having social contacts in that way. So we just went about our business. And I was never really indoctrinated into that thought, because I've always felt that racism, and I'm going to say something very controversial here. Racism is something that my understanding is it was invented, it was created to justify colonization. You had all these lovely people, explorers going around the world, taking lands from people. Now, if they were people like you and I, see what I said there, Europeans, well, we can't do that. We can't take their land, but we've got to create something. There's got to be a differentiation. The Romans never had racism. They just thought they were better than everybody. So they had to come up with something else. So instead of redefining equality, they redefined what men were. And they said, right, well, these people, they're not quite men. And in that way, we were indoctrinated with this whole idea of race and color, which really isn't. It's not really. The strange thing is, I don't believe it's really a thing. Yes, people have got different melanin content. Sure, that's who they are. They're German, Italian, black, white, green, purple, whatever. But the problem with racism, as it is now in the world and was in South Africa in apartheid, is it's almost like a denial of humanity. So if you don't see someone as human, then you can do all sorts of things to them. You can deny them this, you can deny them that. But as we've emerged out of that in this society, it's actually been quite a revelation for a lot of people, because I think one of the hallmarks of racism is ignorance. And when you suddenly are back together, you're playing sport together, you're talking, you're doing things together. You go, wow, he's talking about the same things as me. He's worried. He's me. And that familiarity has been quite interesting to see it in this country. We've got other problems, sure, but they're not. I wouldn't say it's a color thing. Yes, every time there's a political problem, they go back to apartheid. But the thing is, there's a whole group of people, and the majority of people in this country are people of color. They're young people of color, and they can see that for the BS that it is. You know, this political thing where if we screw up now, we can blame something that happened 40 years ago. The young kids in this country don't buy that at all, which is great. They're smart people. They are people. They're ordinary, normal people. They want jobs. They want good stuff for their kids. They want security. And they want to just go on vacation and do normal stuff. So over the 30 years or 40 years that I've been here, there's been a normalization, which is very encouraging. Despite what the rest of the world thinks of Africa, in particular South Africa, it's been very exciting to see a society change. But there are other problems, and those problems are just political. Now, that's another conversation. But the idea of racism, for me, I just want to get back to this, it's rooted basically in ignorance. It's when people don't know each other. They fear each other, and color is a very obvious differentiator, and they go with that. But when you come together, when you talk, when you chat, it just seems really silly that you would have a problem with someone because of the biological content of their skin. And I don't know, I think I've seen a transformation here, which is encouraging. Anyway, that starts the conversation.
Yeah, that's just interesting. Of course, the word apartheid in Dutch actually means different skin. So, you know, it was an immediate reference. You are different because your skin is different.
Yeah.
So I think excellent points made there. I think you're absolutely right. But I think that it goes further than that. I think that racism is as a definition a differentiator, because you can make yourself different from another person. Essentially, like what you're saying, it boils down to tribalism. You know, are you from a different country? Are you from a different race? Are you from a different city? Are you from a different part of town? Are you from across the street? Do you know what I mean? There's always reasons to go, well, this is my part of the street and you're from that side of the street, so you're different to me. There's always this kind of tribalism. But I think that the problem with racism and the sinister motivations behind it, if you like, is it comes from a higher level. It comes from when you talked about the fact that, you know, when we go back into history and we see how history formed and how, you know, certain countries were subjugated and what have you, then you think that, well, it comes from the fact that it came from above, as a lot of these things do. You know, people were given license, people were given permission by using, let's just use racism as a definer, as a definition, as a terminology, to say that, well, we are better than them, so therefore you can be racist towards them. But I think that it is often promoted by, I would say, a superiority complex, which has existed for a long time among certain communities. So I think that that's always been an issue. But I think that, you know, it's a really difficult thing. One of the things that you said, which really touched me, and it's something that, you know, as a, you know, Reza will sigh because I keep going on about Star Trek, but I've always been a big fan of Star Trek. And one of the
I love Star Trek.
Yeah, and one of the reasons for that was because Star Trek was the only optimistic sci-fi. All sci-fi is about post-apocalyptic, the world's gone to hell, you know, robots have taken over, you know. Star Trek was always about positivity, about, no, as humans, we can evolve and we can be better and we can learn to work together. And this is why the Bridge of the Enterprise was so famous for having, you know, a black lady who was an officer I mean, some would say she was a glorified, telecoms operator, but in fact, she was an officer. At a certain point, she could take charge of the bridge. Then you had a guy from Japan on there. You had a Russian guy on there. So it was a great way of showing, like, we can evolve, we can be better, and we can just work together because we recognize each other's skills and talents. And growing up in London, I started to feel, particularly in the 1990s and the 2000s, when the communities here, certainly the Asian communities, which obviously I can most relate to, as I'm one of them, started to really assert themselves and make their identities known. And we had things like, I moved in and out of the country because my parents, we were lived abroad for a while, so we're here. So I went from seeing a London where my parents would never go out in anything other than shirt and trousers, to people walking around in shalwar kameezes, and there being Eid festivals and Asian melas going on, and Bhangra music became a thing, and all of this stuff was going on. And I was like, wow, we're evolving. This is great. We're moving beyond something. We're moving beyond racism. And I've got to be honest with you, it all came hurling back at me a few years ago. And I don't want to get into the arguments regarding whether Brexit is a good thing to stand on, but I will tell you. Because when Brexit happened, I got a phone call. I was in Dubai at the time, and I got a phone call, a message from a friend here, not Reza, somebody else. I do have other friends. And he said to me, Shaz, Shaz, it's the first time in 20 years I've just been called a Paki. And I'm like, wow, we just gave license to all these people that were hidden away or were in closets or whatever. And they suddenly thought, hey, we can come out and be racist again. And that's the problem I have with it.
Can I just say something?
Yeah.
I just got to say something to that, and then you carry on. First of all, absolutely, Star Trek, huge fan. Gene Roddenberry had a vision of all these things, but he felt the only way he could get it through was through the medium of science fiction, because people will accept that. If you just literally had a woman of color in authority in a TV show, Americans wouldn't buy that. But put her on a planet or a spaceship and woo, and inadvertently he got that through. Can I just say the Brexit thing for me? I mean, obviously I was here and I managed to get my vote in, which obviously was to remain. And apparently I'm a Ramona, which we know. But you're absolutely right. Up until that point, up until 2016, when the referendum was held, I used to wander around this country. Yes, I'm British. Yes, we don't have racism. What a lot of rubbish. Lenny Henry is not a black guy. He's an Englishman. And I had a superiority complex about my Britishness. And I really thought, you know what, this is fantastic. Idris Elba, come on, he's just a great actor. I still do believe that, by the way. And yes, he would make a great Bond.
Rob, yes. Can I just interject? Because I totally get where you're coming from. Because if you remember, just a few months before Brexit happened, and I'm no fan of our Mayor Sadiq Khan, which we discussed in a previous episode, but we suddenly got a brown mayor of London. And for that moment, I was like, wow, this is how much we've evolved.
Can I just say, when he became the mayor, maybe I choose to be ignorant about these things, or maybe I'm in denial. But what I liked when he became the mayor is I thought, thank God we've got somebody under the age of 60. That's what I thought. That was the thing that I saw, and I thought someone I could actually relate to and might care about what's important to me. I never thought, oh, he's Muslim and he doesn't look like me or whatever. I never thought that. And may I say that when the Brexit thing happened afterwards, I would travel to France and I would travel to Europe, and I still do today. I haul out my British passport, I put it on the counter and I go, I'm really sorry. Yes. I'm so sorry. I do like people of color. I'm so sorry. And it's awful. But you're right. I think there was this, maybe they were all closet people, maybe they were just putting up with it, but it was so embarrassing. And when we went for my daughter's graduation in 2019, she was at Reading Uni, and I went into a luggage shop, and there was a gentleman. I mean, I didn't ask. He was of Middle Eastern extraction, and I chatted to him, and he said, I said to him, I'm looking for a thing to weigh my luggage, and we had a lovely chat. And he said, oh, where are you headed? And I said, I'm going back to South Africa. And he said, oh, don't you want to take me with you? And then we went on this long chat about what you just said. He suddenly felt like a foreigner in a country of his birth. And it was so sad and totally unnecessary.
Yeah, no, so you can exactly relate to what I was saying. And that's the point of it. that all of a sudden, just when you started to feel comfortable, just when you started to feel, like you say, proud of how, you know, the country had developed, how the city had developed, and then suddenly all of a can of worms literally had opened. And, you know, there was actually, at the time, I remember somebody had actually set up a Facebook group that was titled something along the lines of racist incidents because of Brexit. And it just went crazy because there were just incidents happening every single day. The big thing about that campaign, if I can just start, I know I don't want to hog all everybody's time, but the big thing about that campaign was that they said leave means leave, right? That was part of the campaigning at the time. Leave means leave, right? What some people said is that some people would look at people like us and say, leave means leave. And I'm like, sorry, I think you've completely misinterpreted that. You know, you're the ones that left, you know.
There are a couple of points that were mentioned earlier, which I think I just want to reflect upon. One is I'm a British passport holder. I'm not allowed to vote because I've been out of the country for too long. So Brexit affects me more than it does people living in the UK.
Are you referring to Brexit?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
but to be fair to you, David, the thing about Brexit was that you're probably like me. You probably never conceived that it would happen.
No.
The first time I could vote, I was just turned 18, and I voted to join the European Union, and I remain. My sister, when she got extremely pissed off at me one day, said to me, "Oh, you're so European," as if well, whatever that meant.
I mean,
yeah, exactly, exactly. And then Roll touched upon the thing about people feeling, or was it yourself, about people feeling superior, and so therefore they're racist. Yeah. I think there's also a group of people who feel inferior, and it makes them racist.
Yeah,
And you mentioned the P word in the, you know, when I was at school, I used it continuously as everybody else did. I didn't even know it was racist. I had no perception of it. And anybody who had who weren't Afro-Caribbean that had a shop, they were always open because they didn't have to. In the 70s and 80s, they didn't have to.
I mean, I can use the word because I think Reza and I are probably the only
anyone
people who can use the word here. But it wasn't.
Earphones on.
But it wasn't unusual. It wasn't unusual.
I never understood why it was offensive.
There is no problem saying the word "packy." Packy, if you actually know what it means cleanliness. That's what it means.
That's the literal translation of the word.
If you feel offended by it, either you're reacting to the venom with which it's said to you, which is fine, sticks and stones may break my bones, or you actually know what it means and you educate the other, but it's no big deal, to be very honest.
No, but this is the thing, Reza. This is what I always say. It's not about the word. It's not about the word. It's about the usage.
You had to say. You can use any word. These days, 30 years ago, bad meant bad. Now bad means good.
So now we're moving on to...
If you put everything into context, if you put anything that you want to put into context can mean something else depending on how you reflect upon it.
Yeah.
That's just the way of life. It's the way of life. And one of if there is an analogy, this woke culture that's going on, which is this sort of blame everything except yourself on everything and anything, the lack of personal responsibility is in some way, not in all cases, in some way, this concept of racism, and actually, if it's helpful, Shahzad talked about his background. Roll spoke about his background. David started to refer about. I would love to hear from Stephen. I wasn't born in the UK. I was born in Pakistan. I came here at the age of about 4.5, 5 years old. And whilst all of you are Star Trek fans, I'm going to do a Star Wars analogy. I basically grew up in the bar on Mos Eisley. That's where I grew up in terms of my childhood, my education. Everyone's different. I didn't have, not for 2 seconds in my upbringing did I think I was less than anyone. But the very cool word that Shahzad referred to, tribalism, and according to the history I've read, if you go to old history, ancient history, prehistory, before there was color, there was tribalism. Every tribe thought it was better than every other tribe, and every tribe wanted to survive. and there was some better, there was some weaker tribes, stronger tribe, and everyone did what they had to do. But initially was, this is our way of life, we want to preserve it. Now, I live in a country, when I came to this country in the late 70s, and you may all recall, during the 70s and 80s, even the early 90s, football hooliganism. People hated each other. People hated each other based on what scarf.
Football, yeah.
Based on color. Yeah. Forget color. Forget color. It's very visceral. It's a very visceral thing to form part of a community. Whether you watch Squid Game is based on people getting together, forming teams, just based on who they think is stronger. Right. Full stop. That's all it is. That's all it is. The part that, and I'm not so much detached from Shahzad when it comes to the overall perspective on racism. We just come from totally two different angles. Totally two different angles. I actually believe that scratching continuously the same itch or the same wound doesn't heal that wound. That's just the way my upbringing was. I used to give back as good as I got. I personally never really experienced racism. We would do leg pulling all the time. My friends were Jews, Christians, Buddhists, Hindus. I had the whole. And very, very luckily, my parents gave me an education in a place that had a great deal of diversity associated with it. I never for 1 second felt inferior to anyone. I guess if you really pull my leg, I felt perhaps marginally superior, if anything. And that is the nasty part of tribalism, racism. When you start feeling slightly superior, then you get a whole a whole group of people who feel slightly inferior. And then there is this imbalance. The Mos Eisley bar, which I go back to, no one slagging anyone off. Everyone just gets on. No one says you're an alien from here and you're so. They just get on. They just get on with it. Reasonable?
Yeah.
Very.
See, I think part of this.
The only question that we're left with is that who fired first. That's the only thing we need to know.
Yeah,
about.
but that's an obsessive question. That's an obsessive question.
Right.
In my opinion, that's an obsessive question. If you want to move beyond certain, if you want to live this this Star Trek kind of existence, which is sort of utopian, in some sense, utopian harmony. There's a point at which you have to get on with it. I mean, if someone calls me a I'm not offended for 2 seconds. I'm not offended for 2 seconds.
Yeah.
If I think less of that person, it's just a dog barking at me. Right. And if I think greater of that person, I'll say, listen, do you know what it actually means? That's what it means. Yeah. I haven't got any problem with it. None whatsoever. But these things often these days, not just these days, maybe for the past 150 years, and Darwinism has a lot of contribution to this in terms of colonial racism. Mm-hmm. It's not about seeing yourself necessarily as superior. It's about seeing others as inferior, so that you can justify anything in your mind. And this is what woke culture is about. I am special, so everything else has to conform to me, has to conform to my, go work around my trigger words, this new thing, has to work around my pronouns. Racism is going to be passé. Eventually, the bigger issues are going to be, which are already gender and mental health and et cetera, but they come from the same thing. Some people feel they're inferior, some people feel they're superior, and it's that little balancing act that's going on. That's where I think the problem is. The problem is that we need to move forward.
But wait. I think also the problem is, and there's a larger issue. And I know I'm a white guy from New York, right? So let's get that out of the way. But I'm Jewish, so here's the thing. A lot of it has to do with don't make fun of the Jews. We own everything and have all the money. That's a true statement. So part of it is parenting. The kids aren't taught by their parents, and 2, where you live. I was brought up in a city that when I would walk out the door, since I can remember, there was yellow, black, blue, green, white, purple, Roy G. Biv, right out the door. And not only color, skin, or nationalities, but sexualities. Like in the 60s, I had an Uncle Brian and Steve. One was black and one was white, and they were married, not technically, but married. And I was just Uncle Brian, didn't care. I think, if you grow up somewhere where it's all white or all this, and that doesn't help. If you have parents that are very closed-minded, that doesn't help. So for all these, you just brought up like trigger words and the wokeness, these little pussies, these kids, they need to be slapped around, go back to the 1960s, don't spare the rod, and let's like make them men and women again. And then if you're 18 or 25 or whatever your magic number is, and you decide that you want to be something, fine. But for the first 18 years of your life, be a human being. And your parents need to do that. And these universities have to stop coddling them because they're worried about racism or trigger words or whatever. Because if you look at the 60s, when kids went to university and protested, there was everything. And they all seemed to survive. And they came out stronger and better. We're making, in my opinion, society worse for racism and for the woke and all this. So in 20 years, this world is going to be like a shitbox. Full, I pardon my French, but really that's it. I don't see it getting better because we're not trying to make it better. We have, hold on one second, Roll. We have all these things that we're putting in place, but we're not really putting anything in place. It's great we had a black president, but I blame him a little bit too. He said, I'm the first African, first of all, well, he actually, I guess, was, but he's a black president. You're not the black president. You're the president of the United States.
That's exactly correct.
Okay. Right, like take the blackness out of it. You're the president of my country. Yay. The mayor of London. I don't care what color you are. You're the mayor of London. It's like I'm waiting for when we have the first woman president here. They go, I'm the no. You're the president of the United States. It's like, let's stop with the no, you're not. You're the congresswoman or congressman. You're a senator. You're a member of parliament. Let's stop with the color. Let's stop with the gender. And let's get back to actually governing the world. Yeah, that's, but I don't think we're going to do that. Everything's going to be a first. So it's kind of stupid.
It'll be a first, but and then in 100 years' time, it won't be a first.
Correct. And then no one will care.
And
but to be fair, and I think we actually let Rob, because I think Rob wanted to say something at this point. Yeah, his finger up. But because I just want to come back on that. But let you go first. Go on.
Is it me? All right, good.
Yeah.
No, I just wanted to say I agree with Reza. We started with the topic, but full disclosure, from a personal level, and I know the world isn't there yet, and I wish it was, and it's easy for me to say as a white guy. I know that. I get that. Sure. But I'm personally sick and tired of the whole racism thing. Me personally, I think I'm so tired of, in this country, for instance, anything goes wrong, the man in the street really doesn't give a tosser. No one really cares when you get down to it. It's a thing, as you said, tribalism. People use it as a tool, and it's really disingenuous because my experience, as Reza said, he didn't experience racism. Great. And you're not the first person of color who said that to me. In fact, a friend of mine said to me, he chose the life that he did so that he would be in a so-called white environment to test the waters. He said it never became an issue unless he made it an issue. So the thing is, I hope that we get past it because it's an abstract measure of people that really means absolutely nothing. But it's a very obvious way for some people to measure, divide, conquer, inferior, superior, whatever the hell that means. And when you actually get to know people, and this is a kumbaya moment, I accept that. But when you actually talk to people, when you open your mouth and your ears and you listen, you realize what a ridiculous idea racism and the concept of race is. It really means absolutely nothing, to the point that we almost shouldn't be even talking about it. But I realize that people have, they've suffered under it and it needs to be dealt with. But I really hope one day we can talk about bigger things, as Reza said, like mental health or whatever it is, things that actually mean something and can change people. Because here, what is exciting, as I said this to someone recently, I said, one of the exciting things about South Africa is because it created this apartheid thing and got stuck in the limelight and racism became its albatross on its back. This society was forced to examine those issues long before anybody else was, because we had this thing called apartheid, that we had to, this thing that everybody said, you're a bunch of racists and you're this and you're that. And okay, that was true. It shouldn't have been there. It was bad. It was gone. But when the shackles came off, we suddenly realized we're much further along that lake or across the lake than anybody else is. Steve, when I was in the States many years ago, I came on a talk show and they asked me about the Michael Brown thing. And I know what they were doing. They were baiting me because, you know, Michael Brown, the big kid that was shot by the white cop. What did I think of that, being a white South African chap? And I said, the problem is you guys are looking at this
as if you need to apologize for it.
Yeah, but he said, I said to them, your problem in this country, and I say this directly to America, your problem is that you're looking at this as a black kid, as a white cop. How about the fact the black kid was a big fella and he was a little bit obnoxious and the white guy had bad training? Why are you not talking about that? You're so freaking obsessed with color and dividing people. And this is not what people want. This is not what people are about. And I hope one day that this, I'm so tired of it because it gets in the way of proper conversation. What are people really about? How do they feel? Are they kind? Are they angry? Are they interesting? What is this damn race thing that keeps getting brought and muddying the conversation? That's just my personal opinion.
Do you think that it is essentially a passive-aggressive dynamic?
Okay, Reza, listen, let me take up this challenge because obviously I think that I feel I should, because as somebody who grew up in central London, in Islington, in the 70s, which was the golden era of racism, let's be honest. I'm something that experienced or saw or felt abuse every day. And I have to confess, and this again, you know, we're being completely open about this now, you know, and Reza said this about me. He says, you were traumatized by this. And I said, yeah, I was traumatized by this. It is. And to the point that I did have an inferiority complex at the time. You know, I did feel that I must be a lesser person. I must be a lesser being because I keep getting told this every day. I keep getting told to go home. I keep getting told that I don't deserve this. I keep getting told that I'm not good enough. You know, so at some point you get to that point where it does become a thing and you cannot avoid it. You have to get past it. So every now and then, so we talked about, you know, this proclaiming of the first, as Stephen was saying, every now and then, you know, we do have to say that. So when we had the brown mayor, we said, oh, I've got a brown mayor. I'm not a fan of his. I don't support him. But we've got one. When we had Rishi Sunak as prime minister, I'd made a video. I said, can we just take a moment to say, hey, we've got a brown prime minister. I never thought I'd see that in my lifetime. And I think because of those early experiences, I have to mark these points because it's not a case of racism. It's just a case of marking these points and saying, look, this is the progression. And this brings me to the whole discussion of words and how words are used in wokeism, and to your namesake, Roald Dahl. One thing that happened recently, as you may have heard, is this thing that happens here, and it's happened both with Roald Dahl books and Ian Fleming books so far, but it's happening to other stuff
and
as well.
J.K. Rowling.
Well, I don't know if it's happening to her books, but anyway, J.K. Rowling is a living author. See, what I have a problem with is taking something that's set in stone, that's historical, that's factual, and changing it. And I don't agree with that. And we talked about the word packy, and we've been throwing that word around. And let's continue to do so.
Packy?
Yeah, I did. Now, when you look at a lot of our favorite TV programs that we watched when we were growing up here, things like Minder or The Professionals, or those kind of programs, you'll very often hear in those programs that I got the newspaper for the packies down the corner.
Yeah, exactly. That was normal.
It was
that was normal.
Very commonly used. Now, if somebody says to me, "Oh, we should go back and erase all those," I would say, "No, don't do that." Yes, I found it offensive. Yes, I found it traumatizing, but I don't want it erased. I don't want these things erased from history. Wait, let me just finish the point. I don't want these things erased from history. Same like we had the issue with the statues being pulled down here. I don't want those things erased, because if we start to erase the past, we don't have a pointer towards the future. If we don't learn from the past, we can't go into the future. When we talk about can we erase racism, yes, I hope we can, and I want to. But we can only do it by recognizing and acknowledging that there is such a thing, and we can make efforts to remove it.
In the 70s, for example, maybe late 60s, 70s, it is obvious. I came here in 1977. I remember the taxi cab ride home from the airport. It was a Sunday, and all I saw was white people. Okay, that's all I saw was white people. It was lovely. It was like I was on safari or something like that at that time, right? So, in that context, there were very few brown people. I don't like the word Asian, because Asian includes China, includes Japan. Asia is a big place, but here, brown people were called Asian. The packy shop was a normal thing. It's because we were minority. That these are words that were used to some extent benignly, and to people who didn't like this intrusion of migrants was used negatively. You get both sides. On the other hand, in our part of the world, any history that you read 100 years ago or during colonial times, the white man was called the vilayati, which is where you get the word blighty from. Okay, it was a term to put people down. Essentially, there was racism there against white people. There was a lot of mistrust of white people because they ruled over substantially a majority brown nation. You get these insecurities, you get these expressions. How you take them and how you respond to them is about your grounding. And I, by the way, not for 1 second do I take away from your experiences and your trauma. I totally get it. But there comes a point, I think Steve was saying, you get to the age, that magic age, 18, 25. You got to see past it. For want of a better expression, you man up.
No, I agree with you. No, I agree with you. And to be honest,
these pointers and markers.
No, I agree with you.
I don't give two hoots if Sadiq Khan is brown.
But let me come back. Listen, I agree with you, but I did put it aside. I put it aside until Brexit happened. You know what I mean? Because I was living in Dubai.
What about Brexit? Listen.
And it's a bit like South Africa.
What about Brexit? You will get ignorant people. You will get ignorant people. You get ignorant who are not even 0.5% of the majority, whose voice is a bit louder, and their media and the media will project them. And that's
no. But then you also get it. You also get it on a personal level as well.
You give it back there. You give it back, or you educate people. You educate.
Let me just talk about.
You're a journalist. Your work.
That's what they do. So let me come to the point.
And your recent work, for example, no, Shahzad talks too much on these things.
I know.
Your recent work, for example, on this thing about this Greater London tax.
Yeah.
What's it got to do with Sadiq Khan being brown or not? Does it have anything?
It's got nothing to do with that.
Exactly. Well, you just said it out of your own mouth. So why are we talking about it?
No, I didn't say that. But I get a lot of people commenting. No, what I want to go back to is Dubai, right? Not literally, but in the sense that Dubai, like South Africa, you have a great example when you talk about how can we move forward and what's the future that we can have. And when you look at Dubai is a melting pot of people from all over the place, right? And you see everybody working together, and you see everybody just progressing on the level of their skills.
Are you being absolutely serious? Are you being absolutely serious? Have you joined their tourism board all of a sudden? Are you being absolutely serious?
Dude,
are you really being serious right now?
I have.
Are you? Listen. At risk of this cigar exploding. Yeah, stop there. You're not being serious.
No, I am. In a professional level.
It's Disneyland. It's Disneyland.
No.
Built for the visitors.
Let me finish.
Built by whom? Built by whom?
Listen, because I can speak from a personal level. Because from my point of view, the best professional opportunities and choices
under that umbrella. And you and I both know.
Yeah.
We don't need to educate everyone. Everyone's really smart. You know exactly what I'm talking about.
I know what you're talking about.
Equal in what sense?
But at the same time, I'm talking about
every single maitre d' in Dubai is Filipino or Filipina. Yes?
Yeah.
Every person who's driving a taxi is Pakistani.
And the head of photography at the biggest publisher in Dubai, ITP, is a friend of mine, Efrain, who is also a Filipino. This is what I'm saying, is that there are the opportunities there. So for example, when I call myself BrownCarGuy here, people here were like, "Oh, okay, he's calling himself Brown Car." In Dubai, a bit like you were saying in South Africa,
the worst example.
No. Listen, in Dubai, people didn't even understand it. They're like, "Why would you even do that?" And that's going towards what you were saying, Rob, about the fact that you get to a point where it doesn't even become an issue anymore. So in some places, it's like, why would you even do that? But over here, I was doing it because I felt I had to make a statement. I know what you're talking about. Dubai is not a perfect society like most places in the world, right? You've got, there are labor problems, the things that they do, the human rights issues. There's all of that. 200
years ago, this country, the one that I'm sitting in right now, the UK, 250 years ago, the prevalence of child labor to put industry together was humongous. This country was built on child labor.
Yeah.
Now, in the modern world, developed Western countries such as the UK will tell every other country child labor is wrong. It is wrong, but you've taken the benefit of it. So the reason,
but also you've got to provide a full solution. You've got to provide a holistic solution. You can't just take something away. So I say to people, look, do you think that you're gonna, okay, all the footballs in the world are made in Pakistan by children, and you go, right, well, let's stop that. And you go, okay, so you're gonna stop that. So all the children are suddenly gonna go to school, are they? No, it's not gonna happen. Provide the solution first before you take away the only income that those families potentially have at that point. They're not ideal circumstances, but can we find a way to make things better before we just denounce everything? It's a bit, we come back to the same situation with the wokeism and the removal of words. It's like you're just removing words. You're not making things better. It's like when you do cancel culture and you shut people up, oh, we're going to cancel this person for saying this or for saying that, you haven't changed their minds. You've just silenced them. So it hasn't actually improved the situation. You've just basically silenced them. That doesn't help.
So, but do you think really that this is an age thing? Because if I look at my kids, they have friends of every color and persuasion, and it doesn't enter into their mind that they're any different. Yeah. They're schoolmates and school friends.
I hope you're right, and I feel that you're right, and I do think that hopefully things are changing and changing rapidly, and especially with greater integration.
We suffer from the scars from the 70s and the 80s.
Yeah,
and I mean, you probably don't remember, but there was a really, really popular. I mean, Robin, I spoke about it the other day. Till Death Us Do Part, absolutely racist program. What was the other? Curry and Chips.
Yeah, it ain't half
normal.
You remember that? It ain't half hot, Mom.
Yeah, and people would quote that. And going back to the shops that were run by people from Pakistan and from India, certainly where I came from in a provincial town like Ipswich, it really pissed people off because they had to abide by the Christian shopping laws, which said you had to close on a Sunday.
There you go.
And you couldn't be open. You couldn't be open on a holiday.
Yeah.
But people who came from India or from Pakistan who had a shop was always referred to as the pea shop, regardless of whether they're Indian or Pakistani. And why are they always open?
Yeah.
People always bitched about it, but everybody shopped there.
Branding.
Yeah, but I would say that as well. I'm just
why do people say Jewish people are the funniest people on the planet? It's branding, isn't it?
Well, it's because it's true. Listen. When he's talking about Jewish people, it's very true. We are the funniest people. We have all the money and we control everything. Those are just facts. Okay, let's not even try to fight that.
Are you telling me?
Evidently, the Jews are also extremely modest. But
yes, we're very modest. Yes, yes, Gentile. Speak to the Jew.
So you're telling me Chris Rock is Jewish?
Yes, he is. Yes, he is. Chris Rock is Jewish.
Just clarifying.
Listen, just so you know, I have a file behind my laptop, and I have all the names of all the Jews. Chris Rock is Jewish. Yes.
Oh, then yes. Then yes,
Eddie
the
Murphy,
Jews.
Chris Rock, David Chappelle, Mel Brooks, of course, Jewish. Don Rickles, Jewish.
Don Rickles.
Yep, Jewish. Yep.
What about Sammy Davis Jr.? Was he Jewish?
He was
Jewish. Yes, he converted.
He was Jewish.
He converted. Yes, he converted.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Even his one eye. Yeah.
Sammy was Jewish off the list.
Yeah.
Well, you don't need one eye to count money, don't you?
But in answer to your question,
Groucho Marx.
Jewish. The whole family. The Marx brothers. Yeah.
Adam Sandler.
Communists and Jews with that last name. Sure. So.
There you go.
But a lot is said. There's a I don't know. I didn't actually watch it, but there's a documentary here about the fact that how Jewish feel that they have been oppressed, and even today, like there's anti-Semitism and stuff like that. So that's a whole other thing altogether. But I mean,
it's on the rise in Europe as well.
Is that a thing? Is it perception? Is it something that you feel? Is it something that traumatizes you, or is it something that we move beyond?
Well, it's funny. When, like, in Austin, they have a synagogue. I didn't even know there were Jewish people here, but there's a couple of us, a couple landsmen. And a couple Halloweens ago, someone tried to burn it down. And I was like, really? And then I think a month after that, they had the San Diego shooting at the synagogue, and they have this. And any mass shooting, that's terrible. But when they go into, like, a synagogue, or if they go into an Asian restaurant, I'm like, I feel worse there than some, and this is horrible, I guess, to say, but if they go into a mall and shoot up a mall, I'm like, okay, you hate everybody. But when they specifically go into look for a group, whether it's Asian or black or Jewish or whatever it might be, it more, because it's sort of like, really, we're not past that yet. I can understand if you're going to go postal at the mall because you can't get your additives 2 for 1. Great, I got it. Go shoot up the mall. But if you go to a synagogue or you go wherever and you're going to kill a specific group, whether it's a gay disco in Orlando or a black bar or a Jewish synagogue, whatever, I'm kind of like, enough.
Steve,
or even a school.
Steve,
how many people are on the planet? How many people are on the planet right now? How many people?
7 billion.
Well,
7
it's 8
billion.
billion, actually, it's 8 billion now, yeah?
That's 8 billion, yeah.
Hence, there's more crazies, and hence those crazies are going to get more headlines.
Yeah, that's true.
Okay, well, let's hope they're all watching this show then.
Oh,
You know what
One
really
of them is-
verified me is that when I researched this a few years back, the population of the world has doubled in the time that I've been on the planet.
Yes.
It's
Is it-
mind-boggling.
Are you confessing to something now, or?
Well, I've been a busy boy.
70
Been a busy boy.
But Steve,
Yes.
but this gets back to this is the theme that's coming through here. It gets back to the point that I made right in the beginning, and I think this is true. I think this thing of racism for me, where you're 21 years old and you go and shoot up a synagogue or whatever, what it tells me is, first of all, you're an idiot, and second of all, you're just ignorant. You're maybe just a bit dumb. Maybe you lack some mental faculties. That's what I see. I mean, you've got the Jan 6 thing. I mean, look at those. Those weren't educated people rioting. Whenever you see really stupid stuff like shootings and dumb stuff, well, it's dumb people. I'm sorry. I call me an elitist or whatever, but I generally associate things like this with people who are not particularly well read, who haven't traveled much, who don't consider others. So it's an ignorance thing for me. And and as you said, the population has gotten bigger and there's just more of them.
Right.
I don't know.
Is the answer education? Is the answer education or integration, or what do you think?
I don't know. Education to me is the tool, but I think you have to be bright to begin with. You have to be raised properly. You have to be, I don't know.
So it's external influences then.
I think the family. I think the family is forget religion and all of that. I think if you come from a decent family, wherever you come from, if you've got a mom and a pop and it's very basic stuff for me. If you have that sense of self-worth that your parents give you, you're not going to go and feel the need to take it from somebody else. I don't know.
Self-worth.
Self-worth, yes.
Shahzad, who wrote Watchmen? Remind me who wrote Watchmen?
Alan Miller, is it? Alan
Okay.
Miller?
Yes.
Alan Miller. What will unite humans is the external perceived threat. When there is an asteroid hurtling towards this planet, we all have to cooperate. All of these differences will have to vanish. It's just
it's
what
Ronald Reagan said in a famous speech when he was president.
Reza, I got to jump in. I got to jump in there. You mentioned how things bring together. So apartheid officially left this country in 1994. On the 27th of April, 94, the ANC government came in, and that was the end of legally apartheid. A year later, now it's not like suddenly everybody stopped being racist or whatever it was, but so you had these decades of whatever racial separation. So people were still groups were still very ignorant of each other. The funny thing is, a year later was the Rugby World Cup, and this entire country was one country because of sport. Suddenly, we had a common enemy, which was everybody who wanted to beat us at the World Cup.
You're on the same team. When you're on the same team,
and that told me everything I needed to know. When people are united around one thing, when they get rid of all the BS, there you go.
In Ghostbusters 2, it was the Statue of Liberty.
Right.
You remember that symbol of hope?
Yep.
And that dissipated everything. These analogies are true. Just unite around one thing. Right now, everyone hates the mayor of London, so we're united on that, right?
Yeah.
Right.
2 minutes ago, he was a Pakistani, and everyone was rooting for, Pakistanis were rooting for him, and everyone else was like, there you go. Just, unite around something.
You know,
it will be that asteroid that hurtles towards Earth. That will just everything. It'll who are the most intelligent people? Who are the most reasonable people? And everyone unite?
Well, here, let's do this one because this seems to be in the news now every day. If a major unidentified flying object spaceship pops over London or Manhattan one day, not LA because it's LA, but if it happened in a real city, the world would unite. And I talked to someone in the government once, and what he told me is the worst fear of any government is that you find out that aliens or extraterrestrials are real. We all know the lizard people, they're on our show. And the reason that they're worried, right, but here's why they're worried. Two things. One, religion goes out the window because everybody knows that's crap. The other thing that goes out the window is if somebody says, what, too soon? So because of the Crusades. So, and the other thing is that if you know that there's life elsewhere in different dimensions or different planets or different universes, and I say to you, what are you? All of a sudden, you're not Pakistani, you're not from the UK, you're an earthling. And once you become an earthling, nobody can control you because now I'm an earthling. And so Reagan's speech at the UN in the 80s was spot on. And now everybody's panicked about what if. So it's in the government's best interest to make sure that we all hate each other, that we promote this wokeism and my trigger word. Grow up, you little. Yeah.
So is it about creating? Is it about creating the new boogeyman? Is it about we always have to have a boogeyman?
Yes, create the boogeyman and keep people scared so you can control them.
Yeah.
I truly believe that because ultimately, like I said, tomorrow if a mothership shows up and people are like, "Oh my God, we're not alone," what happens? Right? That's like nobody cares the color of your skin now, right? Because now we all hate something different.
Well, that's the secret. Or not hate them. At the end of the first Independence Day movie, when they figured out how to drop the shield, and then suddenly they're telling all around the world, and all these little groups around the world, in the middle of the desert or wherever they are, going, "All right, we've got the secret. This is how we do it." You know.
Shahzad, do you agree? Do you agree, Shahzad?
About
what Stephen just said?
About what's that?
We're earthlings, yes. So why are you called brown car guy?
Because brown.
You are a differentiator.
Listen,
that's what you are.
When they look at Roald Dahl books,
deal with the trauma.
When they took
unite.
Listen, when they take Roald Dahl books and they say we're going to take the word black out, not in reference to a person, but in reference to a jacket that the character is wearing, I'm like, are you idiotic? When we're at school, what do we learn first? We learn the numbers and we learn colors. Colors are colors. There's nothing wrong with being brown or black or whatever you want to be. No. But it's a color. It's a definition. It's just a word. Yeah. Like I said, as long as a word is just a definition, as long as it's word used as a defining word, it's fine. It's when it's used in a sinister way that it suddenly becomes something more.
Right.
BrownCarGuy at the moment.
I think it is sinister. I think it's sinister because you're trying to infiltrate the automotive journalist community with the word brown.
Yes, actually, I'm sticking a finger up.
I'm 100% behind you. I'm 100% behind you. You have all my support, but that's a divisive word.
No, I'm sticking a finger up at the UK automotive media community.
Which one? Which finger?
It is predominantly pale, male, and stale. So it's about time it had a little bit of color in it.
I agree. Here.
Hey,
well said.
I'm now going to exercise my absolute right of being Church of England, and thank you all.
Thanks, guys. Stay until the credits end so we can do housework. Everybody, thank you for watching. Don't forget to subscribe and like it, and leave your comments below. If you didn't like anything we said, we don't really care. So,
yeah.